Hello everyone. Today I'm going to introduce investment advice and hedging programs for oil investors. It can divide into 5 parts. Introduction: look back at the 3 previous oil shocks. Risk factor, hedging plan, and a prediction for the future. Petroleum is mainly used as fuel and gasoline. Fuel oil and gasoline constitute one of the most important primary energy sources in the world. However, petroleum is also the raw material for many chemical industry products such as solutions, fertilizers, pesticides, mineral oil-based oil for lubricant and plastics. Because of the petroleum is non-renewable energy, therefore petroleum is a strategic resource. Every country around the world will store a certain amount of petroleum in case and is one of the popular products in investment market. The price of petroleum affects the many markets around the world. Next part looks back at the 3 previous oil shocks. An oil crisis is usually a sharp increase in the price of oil caused by a shortage or disruption in the supply of oil due to political or economic factors. The 3 historical oil crises will first be analyzed to summarize the causes of oil crises and the measures proposed by investors and governments in response to the crisis. The first oil crisis was caused by First Middle East War, in which the Arab Petroleum Exporting Organization, the world's largest oil supplier, refused to supply oil to countries supporting Iran, resulting in a significant reduction in the supply of oil on the market and a spike in the price of oil to 4 times its origin level. The second oil crisis was caused by 2 consecutive wars: the Islamic Revolution in Iran and the Iran-Iraq War, which resulted in Iran as a major oil exporting country not having the manpower and material resources to extract the oil. Thus, the oil exports were drastically reduced, and the reduction in the supply of oil once again triggered a spike in oil prices. The third oil crisis was caused by Iraq's war against Kuwait, which led to a significant reduction in the supply of oil in the Middle East and a spike in oil prices. As you can see, all 3 oil crises were caused by political reasons and were concentrated in Middle East, which is the world leading oil supply region, and their very move has a crucial impact on oil prices. Here is a video to explain the oil shocks.
Get ready to explore the OPEC oil crisis of 1973, a major event in modern economic history that affected countries across the globe. This crisis was sparked by the decision of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, led by Arab oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq, to impose an oil embargo on countries that supported Israel in the Yom Kippur War. As a result, many countries in Western Europe, including Germany, France, and Italy, as well as Japan and the United States, were heavily impacted by the resulting increase in oil prices. In this video, we'll examine the causes, consequences, and key locations involved in the OPEC oil crisis of 1973, so you can get a better understanding of this important historical event. Early 1967, tensions were running high between Israel and its Arab neighbors, including Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. On June 5, 1967, Israel launched a surprise attack on Egypt, igniting the six-day war between two sides. The assault destroyed much of Egypt's air force on the ground. This was followed by a ground offensive in the Sinai Peninsula, which led to Israel capturing the Gaza Strip and the Sinai. Israel then launched attacks on Jordan and Syria, capturing the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The war had significant geopolitical consequences, with Israel emerging as a dominant military power in the region. It also led to the displacement of thousands of Palestinians who fled or were forced to leave their homes in the newly captured territories. More than 5 years later, on October 6, 1973, during the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur, an Arab coalition led by Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel in the hope to regain territory lost to Israel, particularly the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. The attack was also aimed at forcing Israel to negotiate the return of Palestinian territories. The initial stages of the war saw significant Arab advances, catching Israel off guard and leading to heavy casualties on both sides. The conflict quickly drew in other nations, including the United States and the Soviet Union, and threatened to escalate into a wider regional war. However, Israel eventually regrouped and mounted a strong defense, retaking lost territory and ultimately emerging victorious after 3 weeks of intense fighting. OPEC, which stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, is a group of countries that cooperate to manage the production and price of oil. In 1973, OPEC consisted of 12 member countries, including Algeria, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, the United Arab Emirates, and Ecuador. OPEC countries produced about 55% of the world's oil supply. In the early 1970s, OPEC had become increasingly dissatisfied with the low prices it was receiving for its oil. In response, the organization decided to take action to increase the price of oil by cutting production and demanding higher prices from oil consumers. This led to a crisis in 1973 when OPEC announced an oil embargo against countries that supported Israel during the Yom Kippur War. In the aftermath of the Yom Kippur War, tensions were high between Arab nations and countries that supported Israel, including the United States, Canada, Japan, the Netherlands, Portugal, and South Africa. In retaliation for the U.S. decision to resupply the Israeli military and to gain leverage in post-war peace negotiations, Arab members of the OPEC imposed an embargo on these countries. The embargo banned petroleum exports and introduced cuts in oil production, exacerbating an already unstable pricing system that had been destabilized by years of negotiations between oil-producing nations and oil companies. The embargo caused a sharp increase in oil prices. Reported that in the last week of February 1974, 20% of American gasoline stations had no fuel, and some states used a three-color flag system to denote gasoline availability. Western Europe was impacted differently by the oil embargo, with the UK, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and Norway banning Sunday driving, flying, and boating, and Sweden rationing gasoline and heating oil. The Netherlands imposed prison sentences for those who exceeded their electricity ration, while the other 6 members of the European Economic Community, EC, faced partial cutbacks. The UK, despite being an ally of Israel, faced little direct effect from the embargo but faced an energy crisis due to a series of strikes by coal miners and railroad workers. The strikes became a major factor in the defeat of the Conservative government in the 1974 general elections. The EEC later issued a statement that was viewed as pro-Arab, and OPEC lifted its embargo from all EEC members, but the price rises had a much greater impact on Europe than the embargo itself. Japan was heavily impacted by the oil crisis due to its heavy dependence on oil imports, with 90% of its oil coming from the Middle East. The government responded by implementing a 10% cut in industrial oil and electricity consumption, followed by a 20% cut for major industries and leisure automobile usage. The crisis caused economic growth to decline and inflation to rise. Japan sought to diversify its oil suppliers, invest in nuclear power, and implement conservation measures to ensure future oil flows. The crisis led to a shift in the Japanese economy away from oil-intensive industries towards electronics, and Japanese automakers benefited from the crisis due to the popularity of their small, fuel-efficient models. In the long run, Japan maintained strong ties with the United States while providing funding for Arab governments and Palestinians. The oil crisis had a significant impact on the automobile industry, leading to a shift in consumer demand towards more fuel-efficient vehicles. Japanese imports, such as the Toyota Corolla and Honda Civic, became popular due to their smaller, more efficient engines. This led to American automakers responding with their own compact models, such as the Ford Pinto and Chevrolet Vega. Additionally, the crisis led to the development of compact trucks, such as the Toyota Hilux and Datsun truck. Federal safety standards and regulations also played a role in downsizing vehicles, with GM's full-size cars reflecting the crisis by 1977, and Chrysler moving towards a full front-wheel drive lineup in 1982. Despite some sales recovery of larger sedans, American cars became more fuel-efficient over time, with the average fuel economy improving from 13.5 miles per gallon in 1970 to 17.4 miles per gallon in 1985. To reduce consumption during the oil crisis in the U.S., a national maximum speed limit of 55 miles per hour was imposed through the Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act, and year-round daylight saving time was implemented from 1974 to 1975. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was developed in 1975, and the Department of Energy was created in 1977. The federal 55 miles per hour speed limit was also ended in 1995 by President Bill Clinton, allowing states to restore their prior maximum speed limit and implement conservation measures to ensure future oil flows. The crisis led to a shift in the Japanese economy away from oil-intensive industries towards electronics, and Japanese automakers benefited from the crisis due to the popularity of their small, fuel-efficient models. To American automakers responding with their own compact models, such as the Ford Pinto and Chevrolet Vega. Additionally, the crisis led to the development of compact trucks, such as the Toyota Hilux and Datsun truck. Federal safety standards and regulations also played a role in downsizing vehicles, with GM's full-size cars reflecting the crisis by 1977, and Chrysler moving towards a full front-wheel drive lineup in 1982. Despite some sales recovery of larger sedans, American cars became more fuel-efficient over time, with the average fuel economy improving from 13.5 miles per gallon in 1970 to 17.4 miles per gallon in 1985. To reduce consumption during the oil crisis in the U.S., a national maximum speed limit of 55 miles per hour was imposed through the Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act, and year-round daylight saving time was implemented from 1974 to 19...
Next, detail and management. Above the news, although large worldwide occurrences have an enormous impact on price in petrol. Even small changes in financial information may lead to fluctuation in price. Traders start to follow financial information to predict possible movement in price. Protection approaches. Economic instruments that include option agreement may be employed to defend against decrease in price. Also, they require appreciate amount of market experience. Adapting to your portfolio of investment among different types of assets may help decrease the effect of fluctuation in petrol price. decrease in demand, the response to petrol issue, the theory of a higher petrol, meaning the time when the world petrol supply is back and begins to fall, remains an object of ongoing dispute. Though may believe extinction will occur quickly, some think that subsequent innovations in exploitation techniques might enable petrochemical to remain essential. Focus on renewable energy sources, making the switch to alternatives may occasionally entail the entirely removal of petrol. Petrol might continue to be utilized for certain programs, such as airline fuel or activities from factories. Whatever efficient alternatives remain to grow. Risks about geographical discovering locations, focusing on geographical. The countries located in the Middle East, North Africa, and Russia represent a significant amount of worldwide petrol reveries. Companies and ought to follow developments in politicals in these countries to identify the potential risks. Moving to collaborations, development in global relationships might have an effect on the market for gas. For instance, expanding connections between United States and Europe could result in greater Iran gasoline exports as well as reduction in price. Worries about the environment and developing society. The petroleum industry in the energy industry is making investment
The Strategic
in
Petroleum Reserve was developed
technology
in 1975, and the Department of Energy was created in
captures and
1977.
stores in order to reduce its impact on the environment. Despite the fact that there is no faultless solution, these changes might help decrease worries about regulation. Society attention, customers' tastes, and investment movement might have an effect on corporation policies regarding the environment. Organizations exhibiting excellent records are probably more unlikely to encounter scrutiny from regulators. Unexpected event and jobs extending the cleaning. Long-term assessed, the monetary effects of a gas leak may far exceed initial disinfection expenses. Arbitration and remediation of the environment may require decades and consume firm assets. In promoting in regulation, massive incident involving petrol may result in legislation with stricter and greater safety requirements for the sector, further increasing production costs. Here is a video that Andrew think of investing in oil and gas.
Is the deal of the century. I mean, it is, the returns on oil and gas are so extreme that you don't even have to talk about the future.
Right.
You have companies that are literally turning into cash.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like there are oil and gas companies where the yield is so high that you get all of your money back in 3 years or 4 years. So we could talk about the future. Where's power going to go? Are people going to be driving cars? Or drones going to be using diesel? But it doesn't matter because it's not the horizon. The horizon of making a profit is so much shorter than any rational person would talk about that. The interesting thing, like when you look at, there are a bunch of really well run companies like Crescent and Sandridge, that have exponentially high returns, but the market hates them. And when I talk to people in other parts of the country, like when you talk to people in Texas, there are
the usage of petroleum on transportation will absolute decrease in the future, but it doesn't mean petroleum price will drop. Actually, the use decrease on daily life will not affect the quantity of petroleum proceed. Because of the future mentioned before, petroleum is a strategic resources as usage daily life. Will put more usage on storage or military supply. Therefore, will until next energy totally take the place of petroleum. The demand for petroleum is very urgent. Overall, for the future of petroleum can be included from three ways. First is marketing trends. On the one hand, and the demand of petroleum will keep increasing, especially for developing countries due to process. On the other hand, more and more countries' government will introduce the policies about carbon emission and encourage to use sustainable energy. It will affect the demand and supply of petroleum. Secondly, the price of petroleum can be affected by the demand and supply rate. If the global economic keep mounting and there are not enough petroleum, then the price will increase. If there researched a new energy can take the price of petroleum or the mining technique innovation, the price are decreased. Last one is change of use. With more and more electric car appearance on the road, and the petroleum use and transportation will decrease, but in areas such as aviation and shipping, petroleum remains the main sources of energy, and the usage on chemical products made from petroleum will not be affected. The future trend of petroleum marketing is affected by focus, including economic growth policies and the regulations, technology process. Also, the development of alternative energy sources may pose the. And the last part is hedging plan. Futures contract on the road, and the petroleum use and transportation will decrease, but in areas such as aviation and shipping, petroleum remains the main sources of energy, and the usage on chemical products made from petroleum will not be affected. The future trend of petroleum marketing is affected by focus, including economic growth policies and the regulations, technology process. Also, the development of alternative energy sources may pose certain challenges to oil market. Petroleum is likely to remain an important component of the global energy market for the foreseeable future. A prediction for the future. After the three oil crises of the last countries and governments realized that they could not rely too heavily on the Middle East for their oil supplies. Energy politicals have begun to shift, and countries are committed to developing new sources of energy, improving the development of alternative energy sources. Recent years, in case of greenhouse effect, many countries around the world issued one policies after another. One of the important policies is reduce the carbon emission, and the carbon emissions from transportation account of about a quarter of global energy-related carbon emission. Therefore, in a sustainable future, cars on the road will switch from consuming gasoline. And the last part is hedging plan. Futures contract locked in oil prices in advance by entering into future contracts. And the second, option contracts choose to reduce your risk by purchasing call options or put options. Depending on the situations for oil companies that produce oil, the purchase of hedging is to respond to lower oil prices. They can make up for the reductions in earnings by purchase put options. For companies that buy oil to produce their product like fuels and solvents, the purpose of the hedging is to respond to an increase in price of oil. They can purchase call options to make up for the increase is caused due to the increase in the price of oil. Exchange traded funds. Hedging by investment in ETF or ETN. This fund own more than just one energy cost. Oil and risk is related diversified.